You're watching a Highwire Media podcast. Make sure you guys like the video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So you have these riots going on in Los Angeles right now because people are upset that Trump is fulfilling his campaign promises and that there are ICE raids happening. Where you have all these illegal aliens in California, a state, by the way, which shifted 10 points to the right in the 2024 election cycle, largely in part due to the border crisis at hand. But still, you have these protests that turn into riots. The media will say, they're just protests, but you have many incidences of violence. And you have these people that are flying Mexican flags that are just super upset at the prospect of people being deported back to Mexico. Doesn't really make much sense. And then you'll have a lot of people saying, oh, well, you shouldn't deport people because the land is stolen or something like that. That's an argument a lot of these people on the far left are using. But in reality, it was Spain before it was Mexico. Shouldn't they give it back to Spain? And also a lot of these people that are coming through the southern border, their ancestry, their family history, they never lived in California or Texas or, New Mexico. If you were to trace their ancestry back to the 1700s, 1800s, when Mexico was an independent country that had those pieces of land, you have the Tejanos in Texas, you have the old Spanish individuals living in New Mexico. And both of those groups are very Republican, by the way, and very nationalistic, and don't really have much of a tie to the Mexican identity. It's more to the American identity, ironically enough, and they've shifted vastly to the right under Donald Trump. I guess you would say era at this point, But when you look at what's going on, you have these cars being set on fire, you have protests getting out of hand, and what does Donald Trump do? Sends in the National Guard. Which makes sense because if local officials are not doing their job properly and you have these protests that are getting super out of hand, they were really out of hand on Saturday and they have continued and they've been violent. These people who are protesting because they want people who broke the law to stay in the country, I assume a lot of the protesters are illegal aliens themselves. But Donald Trump sends in the National Guard, and you can look at this tweet. Homeland Security says order will be restored. That's what we've had to do in this country for a long time, by the way. Restore order. And it's gotten out of hand in California. And this is the first major insurrection riot in a while in this country. You could say that last year there were some of those Palestine protests that really got out of hand due to the conflict in the Middle East. But this is that on steroids. We didn't really have to send in the National Guard for those, to my knowledge. And now we're seeing what's going on here. But Gavin Newsom is just losing his mind because of what's going on. And he goes on to say that because they've sent in the National Guard, it's inciting violence. But the violence was already happening. They're being sent to stop the violence. And if you're defending these people and just their ridiculous decision not to comply with the authorities but to cause more violence, and then you're blaming our National Guardsmen for doing their job that they should be doing, it's absolutely ridiculous what Gavin Newsom is going out there and he's saying. He understands that this is his time to be a diva and oppose Trump because his party's full of lunatics and the 2028 nomination is wide open. And he definitely wants to make his mark out there. And he's going out there and he's going to attack Trump by any means necessary, even if he looks like a complete idiot in the process. He tries to pass himself off on his podcast or whatever as some sort of moderate. He's a sociopath, lunatic, scumbag. And this is a guy who's going out there and he's blaming the people who are being sent in. He's blaming Trump for sending them in, trying to put out the fire. Oh no, the fireman is stoking the fire. That's basically the same logic that he's using because people keep, setting things on fire. No, the fireman's fault. The fire truck? How dare they try to put out the fire? They're going to cause these people to start more fires. And it's here's the problem. Why not just comply with federal law enforcement and ICE and make sure that the illegal aliens in our country who have zero right to be here are deported? Why can't we just do that? Why can't we just have, a state government who complies with the agenda that the majority of the country voted for? They voted for mass deportations. Donald Trump won. He won the popular vote. Now democracy gets to be thrown out the window for some reason. And he goes on to say, creating mass chaos. They're stoking the fears of this as well, because they're saying, oh, well, mass deportations are a horrible thing, and it's largely because Trump is doing it. You look at the deportation numbers under Obama, he deported millions of people, didn't create mass chaos. Trump is trying to do that, and then some. And now it's mass chaos because Trump is doing it. And because people like Gavin Newsom need these people because he wants to get in there, he wants to be president, he wants to give them amnesty, so they're going to be Democrat voters for the rest of their lives. Then he goes on to say militarizing cities. Again, that would not be a problem if these people weren't starting the fire. These are the people provoking the violence. Gavin, not the National Guard for trying to put out the fire. And arresting opponents, which, okay, we really have to get into that because we understand what they tried to do for several years with Donald Trump. Talking about arresting opponents. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is saying, we'll arrest our officials if they're going to be standing in the way of law and order. Not like trying to go after somebody in some sort of rigged trial for how they wrote down a business transaction and tried to trump up the charges. No pun intended. In a way, it's never been done in American history with the kangaroo court. That is not the same thing as what Gavin Newsom is kind of implicating himself in. And then he goes out there and says, no, arrest me, please. And now he's trying to sue Donald Trump for supposedly illegally deploying the National Guard. And it's funny because these are the same people who, and the same people, would they ever say this about January 6th? Did they say that the 16 people or 16 police were inciting the insurrection? You know, they blame Donald Trump, despite the fact that Trump did not tell people to go into the Capitol building. He told people to protest, quote, peacefully and patriotically. So it's ridiculous, but that's how Gavin Newsom is operating. He doesn't really care about the facts. He's a sociopath. He cares about, achieving power. And right now, his objective is to win the Democratic nomination. And he's going to need to win the votes of a lot of crazy people to do that and kind of make himself the martyr. He's a diva, and now it's his time to shine. So he's actually doing exactly everything that he really needs to be doing right now. But when you look at this, he also goes out there and says, local law enforcement didn't need help. Well, they clearly did, because it was getting way too out of hand. And he says Trump sent the troops anyway to manufacture chaos and violence. The same guy who says, no, Trump didn't send the troops in fast enough. We need help now. We don't need help. Which is it, Gavin? Which really is it? So now he says things are destabilized. They were destabilized? Now he's like, we need more law enforcement. And then he's probably going to blame them for that. Like, why don't you blame the illegal aliens who are protesting? Tell them to comply with ICE, let alone with the National Guard. But you don't want to do that when all you care about is power. And these people are, important to your agenda. But it's a losing issue. It really is. It's a losing issue. We used to see the polls on mass deportations, and they would be in the gutter. Kill the border crisis in 2021 to 2025. Basically, Trump took office and virtually ended it. Boarding crossings are down tonight, but mass deportations, the appetite is back. All the lies about the economy goes out the window when you realize we've doubled the illegal population basically in 4 years. And the economy went down the drain. And you already have 1 million people that have dropped out of the workforce who are non-citizens from the start until now. Which means self-deportations are definitely becoming a thing. And that definitely speeds up the process. If you only deport half, the other half, they know it possibly could be coming. They're just going to leave because they could just go home. Nothing there for them here if they're just going to sit around and wait and then get deported. If we're actually deporting people, they understand the consequences. But the Democrats at large, they're going out there leading chants, calling for illegal aliens to be freed and to end ICE raids. So this is treason. This is actually treason, what we see going on here. You have foreign nationals who are just entering the country. We don't know who these people are. And then the officials and the protesters are calling, no, they need to stay. Screw the law. And they'll just go on some incoherent rant about how it's like evil or something to deport people and say it's not due process, even if they get due process. But there is no due process for these people entering. So why does there really need to be due process for these people exiting? That's not why we have due process. It's not written for illegal aliens. It's written for American citizens. Stephen Miller, who's been on fire lately, says the Democrat Party is U.S. of A. It is. They care about power. They see these people as crucial for power. Their donors want them for cheap labor and their easy votes. They don't exactly have to live around these people. They don't care. But you look at the communities that do. And look at how they shifted from 2016 to 2024 or 2020 to 2024. I mean, the Hispanic vote itself shifted hard to the right. Democrats are left scratching their heads about this because a lot of Hispanic voters are citizens. They don't like illegal aliens either. You'll have a lot of dumb people on the right that will say, can't deport people because we might lose the Hispanic vote. Trump ran a campaign on mass deportations, and he won a record share of the Hispanic vote. And that was one of the, I'd say, a signature issue. It's most of what he talked about. The economy was in there too, but I mean, they kind of went hand in hand. You kind of see it now where the illegal aliens are dropping out of the workforce. And for the first time in years, You see native-born Americans start to gain jobs again. Funny how that actually pans out. But it seems like the economic data for the past 4 years, we know it was all fake. They said all these jobs, and in reality, they were either bounce back jobs from COVID, or these were jobs that were not going to American citizens or native-born Americans. They were losing jobs to largely illegal aliens. So you have that. Then you have Kamala Harris, who again, we don't know what her next plan is. Is it run for governor and possibly sink the Democrats' chances of a House majority? Or is it run for president and possibly get the nomination again if she's even able to? We're not sure. But she goes on to say that this is part of the Trump administration's cruel, calculated agenda to spread panic and division. It's called following the law. These people, I don't understand why they just can't get that through their heads. This is what the American people voted for. It even polled higher than Donald Trump himself, by the way. It's popular. It's a position that would be in the majority in this country at this stage in the game. Then she goes on to say it's not about public safety. It's about stoking fear. Well, it is about public safety. It's only fear if you're an illegal alien. That's what it is. So, she'll go on to say, oh, protest is a powerful tool. This has been overwhelmingly peaceful. Well, you have cars on fire. It's a major problem. January 6th was a very small percentage of people that entered a building, and then a small percentage of those people got violent. It wasn't even violent like this, but again, the only individual who's killed at that event was a protester, not a police officer. And Democrats acted like that was worse than 9/11. But when it comes down to stuff like this, it's perfectly fine. And if you decide to send in more troops, oh no, you're the problem. Trump is sending in the Marines, so you have that. And hopefully that can put a stop to this. And they'll blame him for that too. But it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And if he sat there and did nothing, it would have been a major problem. But if he's actually doing something, oh no, that's a problem. He's inciting it, even though he's trying to put it out. It's like, what incited it? If you want to say it's an action leads to a reaction, let's talk about the action in these people legally entering the country, or Joe Biden opening the border for a lot of these people to enter the country. So when you look at something like that, it's like, okay, yeah, if you want to play the, oh well, what came before this game? Yeah, it goes. So these people are jokes. This is chaos. These people rioting hate our country. Many of them have no business being in our country. And hopefully ICE can do their job and get them out of here. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video. Like this video down below. Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can scan the QR code on your screen or go to buymeacoffee.com/TWLedger. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.